Hi, Mark Oswald, your host for Londonderry, Heart, Home, and Soul. School budget deliberative session is coming up, and shortly after that, March 8th, is the town elections. With me this evening in the studio is Nate Greenberg, our superintendent.
Hi, Mark. How are you?
Welcome. John LaFerriere, who is chairman of the school board.
Vice Chair, Bud.
Vice Chair, pardon me.
How are you? Thank you.
And Peter Curro, who is director of finance. Welcome all.
Thank you.
So I'll turn to you, Nate, first to just give an overview of the proposed budget for 2017.
Sure. Thank you, Mark. Once again, we worked with the school board and also the budget committee to develop a budget that was representative of our 5-year rolling strategic plan. It was also fiscally responsible in addressing the needs that we have for our children and community. The proposed budget is $70,778,003. That represents a 2.54% increase. And in dollars, it's $1,756,471 more than this year. We are once again below default, and we're below the default budget by $154,000. As we put the budget together each year, we are continuing to battle a decrease in revenue. Adequacy aid is dropping, catastrophic aid is dropping. And so when we put our budget together, we are looking not only at our programs and services, but how we can generate additional revenue and what cost savings we can come up with. So one of the things, and I'll discuss it a little bit later, is we're going to be generating $1.2 million in tuition revenue next year to offset the loss of revenue that we're getting from the state. Our keys, as we focus in on our budget, is the follow-through on our college and career-ready goals, and our goal of having 92% of our graduating class be accepted to 2- and 4-year schools by 2016. I'm happy to report that the class of 2015 met that goal of 92%, which is great. Simultaneously, when we put our programs together, we want to also make sure that we get as many kids through high school as possible. The most recent dropout rate statistics that we received from the state, our dropout rate is microscopic. It's 0.19%, less than 0.2%. That translates into a graduation rate of 99.8%. That's not bad. That's pretty good. When we look at our enrollment looks like it's going to continue to drop. It's probably going to begin to bottom out. So as we looked at staff and staffing, we had to make some adjustments. And one of the things that we're doing is we're reducing 2 positions at the elementary level, a half a position at the middle school level, and 2 positions at the high school level. But simultaneously, because we're seeing an increase in our early childhood special ed, we'll be adding on a half of an early childhood special ed educator, 6 hours of special ed assistant time, and because of the large number of students that we have at the high school that have 504 plans, a case manager for 504. Also, in discussions with the board and in agreement with the board, we've reorganized our IT department, so we're going to save some additional funds there. So the net savings as far as reduction in staff is in the neighborhood of $358,000 as we move ahead.
And you've had, we'll come back to this later, but while I think of it, you've had a proven track record of looking at enrollment, yes, and particularly in declining enrollment with staffing levels. So yes, let's talk about that maybe later in the program.
I'd be happy to.
Okay.
And then what we also want to be sure of is that we have appropriate levels of staffing to deliver a quality educational program fit for the 21st century and to meet the needs of all our students. So to do that, when we look at our staff, not only do we look at classroom teachers, we look at reading teachers, special ed teachers, ed support teachers, educational assistants, special ed assistants, and so on. So in particular, you're always concerned about the youngsters that are coming up in 1st, 2nd, 3rd grade. So what we try to do is build an educational cocoon around them. So in grades 1 through 3, we have an adult-to-child ratio of 1 adult for every 9.1 students. That doesn't account for library media people or library IT. It's just those people that I had mentioned before. And we deliver a very effective program. We have data that indicates our students are making really good growth in the revised model that we have put forward. Middle school, we average 21 students in a class, and obviously the numbers go up and down a little bit. At the high school, we have a plethora of programs and services, which I'll get to in a couple of minutes to highlight the successes that we've had. One of the areas, too, that always comes up is special education. We have about 17% of our student population are special ed students. Our district, like many other districts across the southern tier, have seen an increase in enrollment in special ed students. So we are very fortunate in that when we were losing students, we were able to create programs and services and capacity to deliver those services to those students in a very effective way. And to give you one example of how education and finances merge together to provide quality programs and services for everyone, we developed in-house programs for autism, developmental delay, emotional disturbance, medically fragile children, and a cost savings next year of over $7.3 million. And if you go back to 2006, the in-house programs we've developed have had a cost avoidance of $68 million to the taxpayers, delivering a higher quality of service to our students than if they would have gone out of district. So we're doing that because, as always happens, the state cuts back on funding. Catastrophic aid, which is what we get a year after, which is based on 3.5 times average per pupil cost, and then the state supposedly gives you 80%. We only get 72%, so they're shorting us $100,000. So putting these programs in place is both educationally defensible, educationally appropriate, and also is a cost savings and cost avoidance. One of the other things, too, that we try to look at as a school district is providing a well-rounded program for students, and that includes not only the academics, but co- and extracurricular activities. So if you take a look at what we're able to provide the students, grades 1 through 12, we have 79 athletic teams in middle school and high school, which generates 2,136 participants, which is phenomenal. Our music program has 1,745 participants, and in elementary, middle, and high school, we have 127 after-school activities and clubs that services a large number of students. And if you add everything up, well, we have over 9,000 student participants in co- and extracurricular programs, which is phenomenal. When we look at the high school, what we're looking at is really a culmination of the pre-K through 12 program. So we kind of focus in on that for this discussion. 25 honors courses, 12 AP courses, 17 project running star courses, dual enrollment courses. So if I add up all the students that participate in dual enrollment programs, meaning kids who get high school credit and college credit, the number is absolutely phenomenal. 198 kids in Project Running Start, and 150 kids in the Southern New Hampshire programs that we have. So here you go, you have almost 350 students actually more than that, 350 students. And last year we had 190 New Hampshire scholars graduate. So phenomenal stuff. So just in general summary, we've made significant efforts to cost avoidance to offset loss of revenue, which is SPED, our SPED programs they talked about, the tuition, IT, and energy. The total, if I just add up those, the total cost avoidance and revenue generation comes to $9,511,627. That's the equivalent of $2.86 on the tax rate. Our cost per pupil is $353 below the state average, K-12.
And the results are far exceeding.
Right. They're phenomenal. The niche organization that rates schools rated over 10,000 schools nationwide. We wound up in the top 4%. And they do it on academics, co-curricular outcomes, and the whole bit. And our SAT scores continue to be above the national average. 92% of our kids are accepted to college, minuscule dropout rate, I've gone over the number of AP and honors and dual credit courses we have, a phenomenal adult ed program that we're running that has had 589 graduates since we started in 02, 03, and 160 of our students were able to get enough credits to then also get a Londonderry High School 24 credit diploma. So if you look at everything combined, it's a comprehensive program driven by a budget that is focused on what our strategic plan is and what we want to accomplish for our children as they move ahead and set them up for a 21st century life and being able to be thinkers, movers, innovators, and be able to participate actively in public life.
So congratulations on optimizing every tax dollar received.
Thank you. We're trying to do that. One other thing I want to mention. You remember the old song, I fought the law and the law won? Well, in this case, Londonderry fought the law and Londonderry won. We were able to change the state assessment system. We led the charge with the board support, with people like John, to change the state accountability system at the high school. So now we're doing SATs. The entire state is following our lead on doing SATs, and we got great support from the commissioner on that. And then Peter was also instrumental with the board support and board's urging to pull out of the federal lunch program at the high school level. That program is working very successfully. Our kids are getting larger portions. They enjoy the food more. Sales are going up. And that has been a big plus, and I want to get in a plug for both our senators who were very helpful in getting us and giving us support to allow us to move ahead with that program.
Bipartisan support.
Yeah.
Who knew?
Yep. And the board really kind of pushed us in that direction. So members of the board like John and Steve Young and Letha Riley, Nancy Hendricks, Dan Lekas were all very much in support of the move away from the lunch program, and they also were extremely supportive of our charge to get the state assessment program changed and have the SATs.
Terrific. I'm going to give you a brief break. I'm going to turn to Peter, and we've got 5 warrant articles this year
Yes.
for the school.
First 3, the voters will see that they've been on the ballot on the warrant for a couple of years. Article 3 is the school lunch and federal funds program. And there's people need to be aware of this article just asks the voters to support the school board and allow them to accept gifts, grants, and donations and sales for the programs. It's not supporting the programs. It's allowing the school district to accept the grants like IDA, Title I, Title II, and allow the lunch program to accept the commodities and the reimbursements from the federal government. So that's why it's a zero tax impact. And then Article 4 is the Maintenance Trust Fund. And again, I think why people support this, the taxpayers support this is, 1, it's a non-lapsing fund. 2, the monies are placed in a fund that is designated for a purpose, and that is to improve the buildings and the grounds throughout the district. It can't be used to offset the general fund, can't be used for any other purpose than what was intended. And then the Article 5 is the capital reserve for equipment. And what we've done a number of years when Nate and I were here, we would have a capital lease to buy the equipment. Now what we do is we have the capital reserve. We pull most of new equipment out of the operating budget, and we fund those needs through this capital reserve fund. So those 3 have been on the warrant for a number of years. What John's going to talk to is the new one, which is the initiative for improving network infrastructure and mainly the wireless capabilities of the district.
Okay, John?
So, Mark, what we've been doing over the last couple of years, and I'll say at least 5 or 6 years now, is we progressively been working our technology base out into the schools. And we originally started with a bunch of pilots throughout, so in particular with the explosion of handheld devices and tablets and so forth, we looked at how do we use those in an educational setting to drive best education possible and take advantage of the technology that's out there. We started running a bunch of pilots. We brought in iPads and started programs to use iPads in various levels of the district. We had to bring in infrastructure to support that as far as Wi-Fi. And we wanted to see how these pilots were going to run long term. I mean, one of the concerns that we had was, are we really going to get our value out of it? If you've gleaned anything from what the superintendent says, it's always back to value, back to quality, right? So we wanted to make sure that we're really doing the right thing as far as the technology was concerned. So we continued pilots as far as bring your own device, where kids had their own pads, some of them had multiple devices and so forth. And we wanted to make sure that they were not just using them to fool around with and just kind of be a distraction, but we wanted to see if we could use their devices to offset obviously costs, but also they have familiarity and they want to be able to use their own device and be able to work on it because they're bringing in the devices from home, they're doing their homework on it, they're comfortable with them. And we've had great success with those programs. I mean, far-reaching success across the board. So we've actually, kind of suffered from our success. We now have to build out the infrastructure to ensure that we can support all the devices that are coming into the schools. So with the help of some consultants, we started looking at what the cost would look like, and we originally heard a cost of around $600,000 to outfit all the schools with Wi-Fi technology, because right now we have Wi-Fi, it's spotty. The building's a brick, obviously, and radio signals don't go through brick too well. And we have to make sure that we have, all the corners and everything hit and all the classrooms hit. So we started looking at how to do that. It was about $600,000, working again with the consultants and going through a lot of iterations as far as what type of technology and how to use it. We came down from $600,000 to $300,000 with basically better technology and saving $300,000 in the process. And this will cover all of our schools. So this will cover Moose Hill all the way up to the high school, South School, North School, Middle School, and Matthew Thornton. We'll have Wi-Fi out into the campus around the buildings to some extent, so kids can kind of use that as a campus atmosphere, not down back into the fields, but around the campus. So if they're outside and they want to sit outside and it's a nice day, they're close to the building, they should be able to use the devices. And really give a much better experience that both the teachers and the students are looking for. I mean, that's really been an issue that we're hearing from a board's perspective to make sure that these kids can use the devices and use the technology that we're starting to use and the teachers are starting to use. So with that said, we've put up the warrant for $300,000 to start building out the infrastructure, which will, I think it's good for 2 years, Peter?
Couple of years.
Couple of
yeah.
years, but most of the technology will be in place for the first year. And we should solve a lot of the what we're calling the dark spots or the dead spots of Wi-Fi, in the schools, and be able to, deliver that service. So again, if you look at what we've done, and again, going back to what you've been hearing, is biggest bang for the buck with the greatest quality. And pretty much that's what we're doing. So I ask people to take a look at that or contact one of the board members. We're always available. People contact us in supermarkets and on the phone and whatever. And, ask questions about obviously the budget and obviously what we're doing with the technologies or any other issues that they have, and we'll be glad to discuss them.
Okay, great, thanks.
Yeah.
And finally, the last one, it doesn't have a budget impact, but it's a charter amendment. For those who've been around a while, the original charter for the school district, and I need to let everybody know that we are not an SB2 school district. We act like it. We incorporate a lot of the deadlines of an SB2, but we are a charter school district. In the original charter, had a quorum to which if a quorum had to be met at the deliberative session in order to amend any articles that the school board had brought forward. That was challenged a couple of years ago, and the court found that really what it came down to was it was taking away the ability of the people to amend articles, and that was what the court kind of really came down on. So since that time, we have obviously run the deliberative session with the adjustment that the court had ordered. We waited a couple of years to make sure that there were no challenges or the school board wanted to do something. So in talking to Attorney Graham, this is probably the good time to put forth an article to bring the charter up to code, so to speak, and address the court concern. And then the charter would be updated and respectful of the court decision and clean.
Good. Final thoughts?
Please go ahead.
Yeah, quickly, I think if you look at the budget that we put forth and the warrant articles that we put forth and the descriptions of what we're doing for the superintendent as far as how do we, bring in revenues, how we challenge what we actually do for the students and what services we supply to the district, I think you see a pattern, right? You see that we have a dedication from beginning of the students' entry into the program all the way to when they leave the program. We start with the cocoon and we go all the way to graduation. And they all feed on each other and they all support each other. And I think that's what's important. We take, as far as the board is concerned, we take our job very seriously. We look at and challenge the superintendent and the staff to ensure that they're doing the best they can, not only for the student, not only for the district, but also for the taxpayer. It's kind of an education for everyone that works, and that's how we kind of treat it. Where we try to be very good students of the money that we get. We try to be creative with how we spend it. We try to be creative with how we bring it in. I think one of the things that needs to really kind of be fleshed through is when we talk about the revenues that are coming in and where we're getting some of those revenues. One of the places that we get the revenue is from having students come in, tuition. And that tuition is being brought in through students from Hooksett when they had the problem with Manchester. We challenged the superintendent to come up with a way that we could attract those students into the program and use seats that are empty. So we like to use the analogy of an airplane flying without a person in the seat. We had a very similar situation where we were bringing students in, putting them in empty seats, no more, no less of a cost to us, but it became a revenue, a windfall for us, and I think it turns into about 30 cents on the tax dollar this year. So again, we're being creative with what we do. Again, Peter mentioned the lunch program and so forth, and that lunch program is something that I'm very proud of because it got us off the federal numbers and allowed us to help our students out in issues where they were not eating correctly and the program was not doing that well. So I think if you look across what we've been doing with the program, the budget is very solid and it supports the activities to how we actually educate our children.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.
And for those of you watching, Tuesday, March 8th, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. at the high school gym. Exercise your democratic rights. Come out and vote. Thanks for watching.